बैठ जाइए।
बिल पास कराया था मैडम।
बोलने दीजिए इनको। भाई हो गया, सारा पॉइंट आपका आ गया, सभी पॉइंट आ गया। बैठा जाए और जोर देंगे, हम जोर देंगे उसको।
Madam Chairperson, I stand here to participate in the discussion deliberations relating to supplementary demand for grants, first batch for 22-23 and demand for excess grants 2019 and 2020. The Union government has proposed next extra rupees 3.26 trillion primarily due to higher payouts for food and fuel subsidies. This is over and above the estimates outlined in Budget 22-23 and includes additional outgo of over rupees 1.09 lakh crores towards fertilizer subsidy. Also, approval has been sought for meeting expenditure of the Food and Consumer Affairs Ministry for rupees 80,348.25 crore to be used mainly for distribution of free food grains under the National Food Security Act and for an additional allocation under Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, that is around 60,110.32 crores. This reminds me about the kartavya which this government is doing. 3 years ago, in 2019, when there was the first virus broke down in Wuhan in China, and we got affected after 4 months by March 2020, the government came out with a very good scheme providing 5 kg of rice to every poor family. Around 80 crores of families were provided 5 kg, and still it continues. And I believe that was the kartavya of the Union government to provide that much of succor to the poor people. At the same time, I would say, just providing paddy free of cost to the people became a success because state governments also at the same time saw to it that it is reaching the needy people. So therefore, I would say in Odisha, when Navin Patnaik government started providing 5 kg of rice to every needy people in 1 rupee per kg, that is 5 rupees per 5 kgs in Odisha. Before that, we had experience in Odisha when Congress was in power. The lot of bungling was taking place. It was not reaching the poor beneficiaries. So one clarion call was given by our Chief Minister saying, अगर किसी ने ये चावल धोंधला किया तो वो पाप है. Reminding everyone that if you indulge in this type of activity, it is sin. ये पाप है. So therefore, I would say, Prime Minister showed us the kartavya path, and the Chief Minister of Odisha showed us what is dharma and what is niti. So in that respect, when both the wheels work together, state and the center work together, then we have progress. And actually the poor are the greatest beneficiary. This reminds me, in 1965 during the Indo-Pak War, the then Prime Minister had requested the whole country that skip one dinner or one meal per day. And whole country agreed to it. पूरा देश उसको माना और कई लोग उस समय चावल खाना भी छोड़ दिया और हर सोमवार को रात को खाना भी बंद कर दिया. 1971, we had Bangladesh war, and that time the Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, imposed a refugee tax, I would say. Every one of us during that period, a refugee stamp was put on inland post or in the postcard or in the envelope, and that money was collected to benefit the refugees. Lakhs of refugees had come from Bangladesh, and to provide them, every individual of this country also contributed. Similarly, I would say now, the present Prime Minister, during the COVID-19 period, also gave a clarion call that we also have our duty to perform, our duty for our countrymen and also for the people at large who are very much poor, who are bereft of any employment. In that respect, I would say now we could do this because there is enough and more. In the 70s, we saw to get a phone line connection was a luxury. Now we have mobile, even money is getting transferred through QR codes. In the late 90s, to get a gas connection was a Herculean task. As MPs, we were issued some quotas. Now there is plenty. Government is providing Ujjwala, and gas companies are searching those houses which do not have gas connections. And rather, in this house, I have heard that you are only providing free of cost only one time. You should provide it more. That's a demand. But providing gas connection was a dream earlier. Now it is the gas companies are searching which household does not have gas connection. They are going to provide it. We have been through a level of scarcity. I've seen it during my school days, during my college days, even during the time when I first entered into the public life. It was a scarcity all along. Yes, government to sleep. And now there is a level of sufficiency. There is a level of sufficiency. The finance minister may say the country has enough for everyone. And all this needs financing, which is reflected in this first supplementary demand for grants. With savings likely under other heads, I do not see the supplementary demands resulting in a meaning break of the fiscal deficit target of 6.4% of GDP. Additionally, CapEx has been augmented by around 31,000 crores, which should help ensure that the CapEx target is achieved. The government's fertilizer subsidy will rise to rupees 2.3 to 2.5 trillion in this fiscal year. The additional allocation for fertilizer subsidy is meant to help insulate the farmers from the impact of a steep increase in the cost of fertilizer due to sharp increase in the international prices of fertilizer and raw materials. The centre's net tax revenue is expected to exceed in this financial year, financial year 23 budget estimate of rupees 19.35 trillion rupees by around 2.5 trillion. This means the government does not need to raise its gross market borrowing in the second half of this fiscal from the proposal level of 5.92 trillion rupees. The extra revenue, Madam, expected over the budget estimate and savings in various schemes, along with a higher nominal GDP growth, would help keep the fiscal deficit within the financial year budget estimate of 6.4% of GDP. One can safely say that roughly the centre's spending could still be rupees 2.5 to 3 trillion more than the budgeted 39 lakh crores for the current financial year. Here I want to remind this House. Imagine of December 2019, when the virus first broke out in Wuhan of China. We were panicked, but it reached us in March 2020. Today, when we are sitting in this house or when we are moving outside, we are very normal now. But remember, another China stream of virus has already broken out. And now, because there is no zero tolerance in China, it will spread. It will spread. Government should be prepared for it. We all should be prepared for it. If in God's grace, Lord Jagannath's grace, if it doesn't come, then well and good. But we should also be prepared for all eventualities. It will, it may not affect us. But can we insulate ourselves? That is the question which also the finance minister and the government has to ponder, and equally all of us has to ponder. An idea has floated, Madam, I am concluding now. An idea has been floated that the government should look at mechanisms similar to GST Council for Agriculture to foster consensus in national policy making with states and harness the potential of this sector. 45% of population are still dependent on agriculture, though it contributes only 14% of India's GDP. I have three questions, sir. Madam, three questions. One is the government thinking on replicating the philosophy of good working of the GST in agriculture sector? Will government take steps making cess and surcharges part of the divisible pool if continued beyond a specified period by amendment of the Constitution? And three, rate of interest on refinance under medium-term conversion loans. Question is whether NABARD be advised to provide refinance at par with the interest rate charged on STSAO refinance to facilitate the farmers to avail the relief measures of conversion, residualment of crop loan on account of crop loss exceeding 33% caused by natural calamities. It is much, much beyond. I think the finance ministry has to look over it. With these words, I conclude, Madam.
श्रीमती संगीता आजाद जी।